The U.S. Department of Justice launches a formal investigation into Planned Parenthood for its role in the alleged sale of baby body parts.
Much of this comes from the work we did with the Select Investigative Panel and the criminal referrals that we sent over to DOJ at the beginning of the year. It is wonderful to know. It is so reassuring to know that DOJ is taking up this matter.
That's Representative Marsha Blackburn reacting to the news on her public Facebook page. Blackburn chaired the Select Congressional Panel investigating Planned Parenthood. This recently confirmed DOJ investigation comes 2 years after David Daleiden released undercover footage of Planned Parenthood employees negotiating price and compensation of fetal tissue from aborted babies. Footage also includes conversations from STEM Express representatives, a company that provides biological material for medical research. While federal laws allow compensation for fetal tissue for research purposes, it cannot be a valuable consideration and should only cover transportation and preservation costs. Planned Parenthood denies breaking the law. Representative Diane Black of Tennessee was on the Select Congressional Panel investigating Planned Parenthood. She joins us from Capitol Hill. Congressman, first off, what's your reaction to news of this Department of Justice investigation?
Well, I'm really glad that they have taken the materials that we had in our investigation given to them, and I'm glad that they are now investigating and take that more deeply. We can investigate, but we don't have powers to go beyond that, and so I'm glad that the Department of Justice is taking that material and looking to see if there is another action that needs to be taken.
Based on what you found during your time on the Select Congressional Panel investigating Planned Parenthood, do you believe the nation's largest abortion provider has broken the law?
Well, I can tell you that there were great concerns in the investigation. And indeed, if they have sold baby body parts, which is illegal, I hope that they will be held to the highest law that we have in the land to hold them accountable for that. That is illegal, and it is definitely unconscionable.
What are the consequences, Congressman, you think Planned Parenthood should face?
That'll leave up to the Department of Justice. Obviously, they are the law enforcement division of government, and they'll make that decision on if the law has been broken, what kind of penalties there will be applied to them and to individuals that cooperated in that activity.
As the chairman of the House Budget Committee, do you see this investigation as a path forward to defunding Planned Parenthood?
Well, we have already passed in the House the defunding of Planned Parenthood. Unfortunately, the Senate has not taken that up. But I believe deeply in my heart that if someone is destroying life, that they should not receive any federal dollars for the destruction of life.
You're a nurse, Congressman, of more than 40 years. What healthcare insight do you have on this investigation?
Well, abortions are not health care. It's a destruction of life. It's a destruction of a baby, and it also affects the mother for their lifetime as well. And so that is not health care. And that's the reason why I have passed legislation to say that there would be a defunding of those organizations that perform abortions, because those dollars can be more well spent for true health care in those like federally qualified health departments and so on. That's true health care. But destruction of life is not health care, and no public dollars should go to fund destruction of life.
Congressman, you are also the sponsor of the Conscience Protection Act, which would protect pro-life healthcare workers. Do you think Congress views your piece of legislation as a priority? And what would you want to say to those who don't?
Well, I will say that it is so unfair for anyone in the healthcare industry to be faced with something that violates their conscience, and to say if they don't cooperate with that, that they could lose their job or be penalized in any way. Our healthcare or our conscience rights is provided for in the very First Amendment to the Constitution, and we should be honoring that. If someone has a deeply held belief against participating in such an activity of destruction of life, they should not be losing their job or be penalized in any way at all. So I believe that we should acknowledge this, and this is a piece of legislation that needs to move forward in both the House and the Senate and to be signed into law to give protection to our healthcare workers.
It's something we will continue to monitor closely. Representative Diane Black of Tennessee, thank you for your insight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
For a reaction and further analysis, we turn to our trusted pro-life expert. Mallory Quigley is Communications Director for the Susan B. Anthony List. Mallory, thanks again for being back with us.
It's great to be with you, as always.
Put this DOJ investigation into perspective for us. How hopeful should we as pro-lifers get about this investigation? Can we actually see an end to Planned Parenthood?
I think that this is an absolute game changer. You know, David Daleiden and the Center for Medical Progress made such an extreme sacrifice, putting their lives and their time on the line to get this undercover footage, without which this really wouldn't be possible. But a major hurdle for 8 years has been the Obama administration, which has protected Planned Parenthood and the entire abortion industry for a very long time. So this is a complete game changer to have a true investigation. You know, the House and the Senate investigative panels and committees did their part, and now it's DOJ's turn to really look into this and start to prosecute them.
We'll see what they do with this. Planned Parenthood continues to say these videos are heavily edited. What do you make of their defense?
There is no lie too big for them to tell to try and get out from under this investigation. You know, there's been multiple, one even done commissioned by Planned Parenthood, a study that found no significant audio or visual editing in these films. David has attempted to release all of the footage. He's in some places been prevented from doing so by the court. But you know, Cecile Richards, I think this is really telling. The very first video that came out with Deb Nucatola, the one who was, you know, drinking wine and talking very graphically, very casually, yes. Cecile Richards came out and herself and did a video apologizing for that. That is such a huge admission of guilt. And then we've got this news in the last week that their partners, fetal procurement company partners, DV Biosciences and Da Vinci Biosciences, they've actually admitted to breaking federal and California law and have settled now with the state. That right there, these were companies that were being supplied by Planned Parenthood. There's great evidence to suggest that they were getting, that Planned Parenthood was getting kickbacks from these for-profit companies. And that right there, you know, if you don't believe the videos, the evidence is truly mounting.
It's showing itself in the courts, and we'll have a little bit more on that story in a bit. You spoke about the role of the DOJ in all of this. Jeff Sessions heads the Department of Justice. What do we know about him and his pro-life stance?
Sure. Well, before he was Attorney General, he was Senator Sessions, and he has a 100% pro-life record. Wow. There's really no greater ally in the pro-life movement, and he is just the kind of person to take this on and to hold the abortion industry accountable when they've really been left to do their dirty work in the shadows for so many years.
And finally, you heard Congressman Black's answer regarding the Conscience Protection Act. What are its chances in Congress?
Yeah, this is a huge battle that we've been mobilizing people now for many weeks. It's going to be very difficult. I can't withhold that from viewers, that this is a really uphill climb, because we're trying to get this included on an appropriations bill, which is going to require 60 votes. So the pro-abortion Democrats will be fighting tooth and nail to get out any social policy from this appropriations bill. But we have strong pro-life allies in the House and Senate, and in the White House, and all those pieces are going to play a role in these appropriations negotiations. So I just urge people to stay involved and to keep fighting and praying.
And to take action. Mallory Quigley with the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
My pleasure.